This message is not for everyone. It will not resonate with the crowd. It will not be embraced by those seeking comfort, distraction, or applause. It is not meant for those who need evidence before they believe, nor for the ones who need permission to feel their own soul stir. This is a message for the one. If something within you shifted just now, a subtle ache, a quiet breath that held meaning you couldn't name, then you already know. You're not here by accident. You didn't press play by chance. You didn't survive everything just to blend back in. And you didn't find this video, this moment, without divine design. You were sent here. And so was this. This is not just another message. It is a mirror, a remembering, a sacred pull. And if you are the one it was written for, you will feel every word, not just in your ears, but in your bones. So stay with it, don't look away, don't pause this, don't dismiss it as coincidence. There are no accidents in sacred timing. And this is sacred. You always knew you were different. Before anyone told you who you should be, before you even had language for it, you felt it. A subtle dissonance in the world around you, as if everyone else received a map, and yours was written in symbols only your spirit could understand. You moved through life with questions too large for the spaces you were given. You saw too much, felt too deeply, and when you tried to share it, they said you were too much, too sensitive, too intense, too quiet, too bold, too strange. But the truth, you were never meant to be palatable. You were meant to be powerful. The world tried to name you. But those names never fit because they weren't spoken by the voice that made you. That voice, the one that whispered to you when the room fell silent, the one that never left you, even when you turned away. It's calling louder now, not to change you, but to reveal you, because the truth is, you were never lost, only hidden. You were never broken, only preserved. They said you were forgotten, but heaven had you marked. They said you missed your moment, but the moment hadn't arrived. And now it has. Everything you've walked through, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer, every dark night you thought would never end, was not punishment. It was preparation, because only those who have walked through fire without being consumed can carry what you carry. Only those who have been emptied can be trusted to hold divine oil. You weren't overlooked. You were set apart. You weren't delayed. You were aligned. And now, chosen one, it is time to remember, to come out of the wilderness, to stand in the firelight of your own soul and say, I was always meant to shine. Yes, it's been lonely. Yes, you've questioned yourself 1,000 times. Yes, the silence has been deafening. But listen closely. Can you hear it? That sound beneath the noise, that pulse behind the stillness. It's the rhythm of heaven, beating inside your chest. It never left you, not for a moment. And now it is rising. This awakening isn't loud. It doesn't need to be, because truth doesn't shout. It simply is. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You are not here to repeat the patterns of those who came before. You are here to break them, to rewrite the script, to be the first in your line to remember. You have always walked between worlds, one foot in this reality, one in something sacred and unseen. That's why shallow things never satisfied you. That's why you felt homesick in places you'd never left. That's why you cried over things no one else noticed, because your spirit was speaking a language the world had forgotten. And now it is returning through you. You are not here to mimic what's been done. You are here to become what has never been. There is no mold for you. There is no manual. There is only memory, and you are starting to remember now, the way the stars seemed to whisper when you were a child, the way your breath caught at the sound of a certain name, the way you felt peace in the middle of storms that should have broken you. All of it was signaling, you are not ordinary, you are not random, you are called, and with that calling comes fire. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that refines. It burns off the illusions, the false identities, the borrowed fears. It burns away the need for validation. and reveals the truth. You were born carrying light, not just any light, but a frequency the earth has been waiting for. Yes, you, the one who almost gave up. You, the one who felt too much. You, the one who was told to sit down, stay quiet, shrink back. You were never meant to shrink. You were meant to stretch heavens wide open. You've spent lifetimes being shaped, refined, tested, and now it is time to become. This is not the beginning of your story, it's the remembering of it. Because before you were born, your name was already known. Before you took your first breath, your path was already sacred. Before you could walk, you were destined to wake others by simply being awake. And now, that moment is here. You do not need to explain yourself anymore. Your energy explains everything. You do not need to convince, you only need to be, and those who are meant to see you will. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped hiding. This is your hour, this is your unveiling, this is your return, not to something new, but to something eternal. And so, chosen one, stand still for a moment. Let the fire settle in your bones. Let the remembrance rise in your blood. Let your hands open to receive what's already yours. You are not becoming. You are emerging. You are not asking. You are answering. And everything in the heavens is watching, because when the chosen rise, realities bend. Stay here. Part 2 is already calling you forward. There are moments in your life you still don't speak about, not because they didn't matter, but because they mattered too much. Because the pain in them carved something in you too sacred for language, and deep down, you know, they weren't accidents. They were alignments. Every door that closed, every person who walked away, every opportunity that disappeared when you needed it the most, none of it was rejection. It was redirection, but you didn't know that then. Back then, all you could see were shadows. You looked for light and found silence. You reached out and were met with emptiness. You begged for a sign, but all you got was stillness. And so you wondered, am I forgotten? Did I miss it? Did God change his mind about me? But beloved, God never changed his mind. He was changing your position, because the truth is, you were never forgotten. You were being hidden. Not because you were weak, but because what you carry is too strong to be exposed too soon. You were veiled like a sacred treasure, not buried, planted, because anything sacred must be shielded while it grows. You didn't know it, but heaven was guarding you from counterfeits, from corruption, from conversations meant to dilute your power before you even knew you had it. That's why you were delayed. Not because you were unworthy, but because you were too worthy to be mishandled. Delay was your protection. You weren't behind schedule. You were beneath the surface, growing roots, becoming unshakable. Because what you are about to carry will require more than charisma. It will demand depth. Anyone can shine in the light, but only those prepared in the dark can radiate from within. And you were shaped in silence, in the stillness of your nights, in the tears no one saw, in the hours where no one applauded, and still you showed up. That's how heaven builds chosen ones. Not in the crowd, but in the cave. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in ease, but in endurance. And now, the endurance is starting to make sense, isn't it? Now, as you look back, you realize you were being formed, not forgotten. You were being marked, not missed. You were being fortified, not failed. That ache in your bones, it was never weakness. It was remembrance. The stirring you feel now, it's not fear. It's activation, and everything around you is beginning to respond. Have you noticed it? The people who once ignored you now turn their heads. The doors that once shut now slowly open. The ideas you buried now awaken with fire. This is not coincidence. This is the unveiling, because when it is time, even the wind begins to whisper your name. Even the stars realign, even the resistance shifts, and you, beloved, are no longer just surviving. You are stepping into authority. But don't mistake this moment as the reward. It is just the revealing, because your calling was never meant to be earned. It was meant to be remembered. You are not ascending because of performance. You are rising because of positioning, and that positioning came through fire. So don't diminish the seasons that broke you. They built your altar. They hollowed you out just enough to hold holy oil. That is why others left. That is why the circles got smaller. That is why the silence grew louder, because not everyone can carry what you carry. Not everyone was assigned to your destiny. Some were only meant to observe, not accompany. Don't grieve what was meant to pass. Don't chase what was sent to teach, not to stay. Everything that remained is rooted, and everything that left was released. And now, as the old falls away, what was hidden is beginning to shine, not with ego, but with essence. Because this is not about becoming someone new. This is about remembering who you've always been. You don't need more credentials, you need more clarity, and clarity is rising like the morning sun. You can feel it, can't you? You speak and the atmosphere shifts. You enter a room and something unseen rearranges. You pray and timelines bend. This is not imagination. This is alignment. The frequency you carry is no longer dormant. It's disruptive. It breaks chains without effort. It exposes falsehoods without words. It brings comfort and conviction in the same breath. And some will fear it. They will call it arrogance. They will say, "You changed." They will misunderstand your stillness, your silence, your separation. Let them. Their misunderstanding is not your burden. Their confusion is not your concern. You are not here to be explained. You are here to be embodied. You are a living answer to prayers people don't know how to voice. You are a walking invitation for others to remember who they are. You are the fulfillment of generations of longing, and you didn't even know it. But now you do. Now you are waking up not just to purpose, but to placement. You are not just called, you are commissioned. This frequency you carry, it has been safeguarded for this hour. This voice you've been given, it has been refined for this moment. This heart that still knows how to be tender, it has survived because softness is a strength this world has forgotten. You are not behind. You are right on time. Because now that you have nothing left to prove, you have everything left to give. You are being called into rooms not for what you do, but for who you are. You no longer have to knock. The doors are opening because your presence speaks. You no longer have to beg. What is yours is magnetized to your alignment, not your effort. This is the shift. This is the moment the disguise comes off, and the world sees not what you became, but who you've been all along. Welcome to your unveiling. Stay here. Part 3 is already stirring beneath your skin. Not everyone will understand what's happening inside you right now, because what you're experiencing doesn't make sense on the surface. It doesn't look like success. It doesn't follow the formulas. It doesn't check the boxes. But something in you knows this is not a breakdown. This is not a mistake. This is not the end. This is the becoming. You felt it, the friction in your chest, the ache that has no name, the silent scream between your breath and your bones. That's not confusion, that's transition. And you, chosen one, are in the sacred middle, where the old no longer fits but the new hasn't fully formed. This is the most fragile place. This is where many turn back, because here there are no guarantees, no applause, no clear signs that all your obedience is working. But listen closely. The absence of clarity does not mean the absence of purpose. The silence around you does not mean silence within heaven. In fact, silence is the language of God when He is building something holy. He doesn't speak to rush you. He speaks to root you. He doesn't shout through the chaos. He whispers in the stillness. And this quiet you're walking through, it's not emptiness, it's evidence that you're finally in the space where transformation begins. because chosen ones don't grow by proof. They grow by pressure. They grow in caves, not stages. They are revealed, not recruited. And you have been walking through fire, but not to be consumed. The fire did not come to destroy you. It came to reveal what cannot burn. You have lost what wasn't real. You have been stripped of what couldn't stay. You have watched as the false fell away. And what remains, that is your truth. That is your sacred foundation. The you that's left after the shaking is the you that heaven always intended. So stop grieving who you used to be. That version of you served its purpose. It kept you alive, it helped you survive, but this version of you was forged to lead. You no longer fit in the spaces that required you to play small. You no longer resonate with voices that feed your doubt. You no longer follow frequencies that dim your light. Because you were never meant to blend in, you were meant to pierce through. You don't walk into rooms unnoticed anymore. Even your silence speaks, even your stillness shifts the atmosphere. Because when someone knows who they are, truly knows, they don't need to announce themselves. Their presence carries a weight that words cannot manufacture, and that's what's happening to you now. You are being refined into someone the world cannot ignore, not because of what you have, but because of what you've withstood. You have survived things that would have broken others. You have endured seasons that were meant to drain you, but you didn't quit. Even when you had no strength left, even when you couldn't feel the purpose anymore, even when the vision blurred, you kept walking, not because you were sure, but because something inside you refused to stop. That something, it was your soul remembering. It was your divine assignment pulling you forward, because the chosen don't walk by sight, they walk by fire, and that fire is alive in you now. It may not roar, it may not shine bright yet, but it's steady, it's sure, it's holy, and soon everything that once resisted you will have no choice but to respond. Because when the chosen step into alignment, realities bend. You were not fighting for your life back then. You were fighting for your identity. The enemy didn't come for your job, your relationships, your stability. He came for your remembrance. Because if you ever remembered who you are, everything would change. And now, you do. You may not know every detail. You may still have questions. But you're no longer doubting your essence. You know you were made for more. You know you carry something rare. You know your spirit cannot be silenced, diluted, or dismissed. And that knowing, that inner certainty, is what makes you dangerous to darkness. Because you don't need validation anymore. You don't need applause. You don't need proof. You have presence. You have power. You have the permission of heaven. You walk differently now. Not because your life got easier, but because your vision got clearer. You no longer waste energy convincing others of your worth. You no longer beg to be seen. You no longer trade authenticity for acceptance, because acceptance from the wrong places is still rejection. And now, your soul refuses to shrink just to be liked. You were never created to be understood by everyone. You were crafted for a frequency few will ever reach. That's why your pain was so specific. That's why your process was so peculiar. Because what you carry is not of this world. It was never meant to be common. It was never meant to be replicated. It was meant to be remembered by you. And now, as you remember, you rise. Not with arrogance, with alignment, not with noise, with knowing, not with vengeance, with vision, because you're no longer reactive. You're responsive. You listen for heaven's voice before the world's opinions. You take your cues from the spirit, not from systems. You're not building platforms. You're building portals. You're not chasing influence. You're walking in impact. And what you carry is waking people up, even if they don't say it, even if they resist it, even if they run from it. They feel it, because your energy speaks the truth they forgot. Your presence reminds them of what's possible. Your resilience confronts the parts of them that settled. And that's not a burden, it's a mission. You were sent here for this, to walk in spaces others were afraid to touch. To love in ways others couldn't understand, to hold a frequency high enough to shake what's stagnant. You are a disruptor of comfort, a revealer of the real, a living prophecy, and now the fulfillment is beginning. What was hidden is being honored. What was buried is bearing fruit. What was waiting is now arriving. Do not back down. Do not second guess. Do not delay your emergence to make others feel safe in your absence. You are not arrogant. You are anointed. You are not a threat. You are a mirror. And if your light exposes darkness, let it. If your truth makes others uncomfortable, so be it, because you didn't come to maintain systems. You came to transform atmospheres. And that shift begins with your yes. Say it now, not to me, not to the world, but to the voice that's been whispering your name through every storm, every silence, every season of breaking. Say it to the one who called you before time began. Yes. Let that word ripple through every dimension. Let it echo through your bloodline. Let it awaken everything that's been sleeping inside you, because you are no longer becoming. You are here. You are ready. You are the one. Let the unveiling continue. You weren't sent here to be neutral. Your presence was never designed to blend into the background. It wasn't meant to go unnoticed, unbothered, or undefined. You weren't sent here to echo the noise of the world. You were sent to carry a sound the earth had forgotten. And that sound is you. You've been told to soften your truth, to adjust your tone, to shrink your energy so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But what if their discomfort isn't a problem? What if it's a signal? What if your presence is doing exactly what it was always meant to do? You were never meant to be easily accepted. You were meant to be impossible to ignore. There's a difference between arrogance and anointing, and chosen one. Your anointing speaks even when your mouth is closed. That's why some people backed away when you said nothing at all. That's why others attacked what they didn't even understand. That's why the room shifted before you ever opened your lips. Because your spirit speaks frequencies that rattle the illusions. You don't just walk into places, you realign them. And the deeper you move into that knowing, the more resistance you will meet. Don't take it as rejection. Take it as confirmation. Because only those carrying something holy draw the attention of what's unclean, and your spirit is not silent anymore. The old you would have apologized, would have tried to make it easier for everyone else to stay small, would have dimmed the light so no one had to squint. But that version of you is gone. And what has replaced it is someone who has seen the cost of hiding and chosen to rise anyway. You've come too far now to retreat into shadows. You've endured too much silence to surrender your voice again. You were never called to be tolerated. You were called to be revered, not by man, but by heaven. And when heaven reveres someone, the earth can no longer contain them. So yes, people will fall away. Yes, spaces will feel tighter. Yes, what once felt like home will start to feel like exile. That is not loss, it is refinement. The higher the calling, the lighter the load. And what's being removed right now is not punishment, it's preparation. You're not being left behind, you're being lifted above. You're not losing friends. You're losing weight you didn't know you were carrying, because where you're going, not everyone is meant to follow. Some people were only assigned to your survival season. They helped you build the boat, but they cannot cross the water. This crossing, it is sacred, and it demands separation. You will know who's aligned by the peace you feel in their presence, and you will know who's expired by the confusion they bring to your clarity. This is not personal, it is positional. You are being positioned for something greater. And with every layer that falls, your soul becomes more visible, more clear, more powerful. You are not becoming better, you are becoming truer. That's why the distractions are fading. That's why the old desires don't move you anymore. That's why your soul no longer seeks what once satisfied. Because the appetite of the awakened is different. You're not hungry for attention. You crave alignment. You're not drawn to shallow affirmation. You're magnetized to deep resonance. You no longer move to be seen. You move because you were sent. And being sent means surrendering your timing, your comfort, your plans. It means walking into rooms that don't make sense, speaking words that don't belong to your intellect, carrying truths that didn't originate in your logic, but were etched into your bones before time began. This is the moment your steps stop being random. This is the hour when your obedience becomes your direction. You don't need to understand everything to move forward. You just need to recognize the voice you've always trusted. That voice is still speaking. It's not loud, but it's precise. It doesn't demand attention, but it commands atmosphere. That voice isn't new. It's ancient, and you are no longer ignoring it. You are no longer asking for a map. You've become the compass. Others may not see what you see. They may not understand why you're walking away from what they call stable, why you're saying no to what they call success, but you don't answer to comfort. You answer to calling, and your calling is not up for debate. It's not measured by metrics. It's not dependent on applause. It's not validated by visibility. Your calling is sealed in spirit, in silence, in sacred assignment, and that's why the shift feels so heavy. Because the weight of glory isn't casual. You're not carrying pressure. You're carrying presence. You don't need a stage to be powerful. You don't need followers to be fruitful. You don't need validation to be valuable, because you weren't created to entertain. You were created to awaken. And awakening begins in you. You are now the evidence that power doesn't have to shout, that light doesn't need approval to shine, that alignment speaks louder than ambition. So if it looks like you're standing still, trust me, you're not. You're taking root, and those roots are reaching deeper than they ever have. You're growing where no one sees. You're expanding where no one claps. You're becoming someone no one can explain, because you're not being built by the world. You're being remembered by heaven. You were never sent to be another voice in the crowd. You were sent to be the sound that cracks the silence. So stop minimizing the impact of your existence. Stop apologizing for how deeply you feel, how intensely you see, how boldly you carry what others were afraid to touch. You weren't made to echo. You were made to resonate. You weren't made to adjust. You were made to uproot. You weren't made to conform. You were made to consecrate. And now the time has come to stop filtering your fire, to stop hiding your knowing, to stop withholding your light. This is the moment when your essence becomes your offering. This is the space where you stop walking as if you're unsure of your authority. You are not confused. You are consecrated. You are not broken. You are burning. You are not waiting for the world to call your name. Heaven already did. So take the step. Even if your knees shake, even if your voice cracks, even if no one understands. Because obedience isn't about understanding, it's about alignment, and your alignment will do more than your striving ever could. Stay here. Part 5 is already on its way. There are parts of your story that still feel unfinished. Wounds that haven't been wrapped in explanation, seasons that ended without closure. Questions that echo louder at night than they do in the day. And yet, you're still here. Not just alive. Awake, still breathing, still believing, still walking, even if no one clapped, even if no one noticed. This is the proof, chosen one, that the fire did not burn you. It built you, because those who carry divine light are often forged in divine silence. There's a misunderstanding many have about power. They think it's something you display, but true power is not loud, it's anchored. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek attention. It simply is, and everything around it adjusts. And you, beloved, have become that. A soul so anchored in what is real that no counterfeit can cling to you anymore. You are no longer pulled by what is shiny, no longer moved by noise, no longer seduced by approval, because you've touched something eternal. And once you touch eternity, temporary things lose their grip. The ache you feel for more, it's not dissatisfaction, it's discernment. You've outgrown spaces you once prayed to enter. You've surpassed stories you once thought were your destination, not because you're better, but because you're becoming. You were never made to camp in comfort. You were designed to walk through unfamiliar doors, to carry keys that unlock what others thought was sealed, to be a bridge between realms, between what is seen and what is true. That's why you couldn't stay hidden forever. That's why the wilderness couldn't keep you. It refined you, but it could not own you. And now every step you take carries memory of how you stood when you should have collapsed, memory of how you kept faith when the answers never came, memory of how you whispered yes to heaven when the world gave you no reason. Those moments, they did not disappear. They deposited something in you, something sacred, something dangerous to darkness. The old you would have called it strength, but now you know better. It's not just strength, it's strategy. Heaven has built you into a vessel that leaks glory, not because you're perfect, but because you're willing to be misunderstood, willing to walk alone, willing to carry what others dropped, willing to remember when forgetting would have been easier. That willingness, that quiet, resolute, unwavering willingness is the real evidence that you were chosen. You didn't earn this. You remembered it. You didn't fabricate it. You surrendered to it. And now it lives in your eyes, in your breath, in your silence, in the way you don't chase anymore, you attract. Because the universe recognizes alignment. It bends toward obedience. It opens for those who have waited long enough, not with bitterness, but with belief. And you, chosen one, you never stopped believing, even when it hurt, even when it bled, even when the timeline made no sense. You waited, not passively, but with posture, with poise, with quiet readiness. And now, readiness is being met with release. The release of burdens you never needed to carry. The release of labels that never belonged to your name. The release of old timelines that kept you tethered to false identities. You are not what happened to you. You are what was hidden in you the entire time. You are not what they called you. You are what heaven named you before time began, and that name is rising. You can feel it, the rumble in your chest, the weight lifting from your shoulders, the soft but steady declaration of a soul that has remembered its authority. You are walking into places you once thought were beyond you, but now you realize you were above them the entire time. You're not behind, you're prepared, you're not wandering, you're activated. This moment isn't just about what's coming. It's about what's already here. It's about the way your breath now moves with intention, the way your feet now walk with direction, the way your spirit no longer needs permission to speak. Your energy used to knock, now it enters, not because of arrogance, but because of alignment. And those who are meant for you, they'll feel it before you speak. They'll recognize it in your silence. They'll know, not because you told them, but because their spirit remembers yours. This is the level of resonance you're stepping into now. You are becoming impossible to overlook, impossible to ignore, impossible to silence. Because when a soul is fully awakened, it doesn't need a platform. It is the message. And you, chosen one, you are that message. You are the answer someone has been searching for. The presence that breaks something open just by being there. The sound of truth in a world addicted to illusions. You've been hidden long enough. Now you are being revealed, not for fame, not for status, but for impact. The kind of impact that cannot be measured in numbers, the kind that shifts atmospheres, awakens generations, and destroys cycles. This is why the warfare was so intense. This is why the delays felt so personal. This is why the silence was so loud. Because the moment you stepped into your truth, every false system around you began to tremble, and it still is. But don't let that make you shrink. Let it remind you who you are. You are not here to prove. You are here to embody. You are not here to explain. You are here to exist, and that existence is changing everything, every room, every relationship, every timeline. You are a pivot point, a spiritual disruptor, a living portal, and now the wind is shifting. Heaven is opening doors that no man can shut. Heaven is closing paths that no doubt can delay. Heaven is pushing you forward because you're ready. You didn't think you'd get here, but grace carried you, mercy trained you, fire shaped you, and now you rise, not in noise, but in knowing, not with strategy, but with spirit, not to impress, but to impact. The earth has been groaning for a moment like this, for a soul like yours to step fully into its sound, for someone to walk in truth when lies are trending, for someone to carry light without apology, and that someone is you. Let the next step be taken without hesitation. Let the old timelines break. Let the real you stand up, because the world is not waiting for another trend. It's waiting for your transcendence. Stay here. Part 6 is the rise. You are not stepping into something new. You are stepping into something ancient, something you've carried long before time could measure it, long before the world had language for what you are, long before you had breath. You had a blueprint. You weren't built for systems. You weren't designed for safety. You weren't crafted to fit. You were sent, and what is sent is never confused about its origin. You don't have to understand every step. You only need to remember the assignment. And your memory is awakening now. That low whisper in the back of your spirit, it's becoming a voice. That gentle ache between your ribs, it's becoming a roar. Not because something around you changed, but because everything within you is coming online. You are becoming what you were before the world told you who to be. The veil is lifting, the silence is cracking, the light that once flickered is becoming flame. You are not the same, and you never will be. This is the becoming, the shift, the return. Not to a version of yourself you imagined, but to the truth that's been buried beneath expectations, fear, rejection, and delay. Because chosen ones don't evolve from the outside in, they remember from the inside out, and the remembrance is in full bloom. You can't go back to old spaces. They no longer recognize your frequency. You can't go back to old roles. They no longer contain your energy. You can't go back to old timelines. They've already collapsed, because your presence has altered them. You thought the collapse was a curse, but it was the recalibration. Heaven knew what was about to be activated in you, and the world around you had to fall away, so the world within you could rise. This isn't poetic. This is prophetic. You are not where you were. You are not who you were. You are no longer waiting for permission to shine. You are permission in motion. The world is feeling your alignment, and not everyone will clap, because not everyone was built for your altitude. Some only loved you when you were silent. Some only followed you when you played small. Some only accepted you when you were hidden in layers of uncertainty. But that version of you, the one who begged to belong, the one who tolerated dishonor, the one who confused humility with invisibility, is gone. And what stands now is someone formed in holy fire, someone who doesn't just carry light, but is light, not a spotlight, but a torch, one that refuses to go out, one that refuses to flicker just because the room got uncomfortable, one that burns with remembrance. Because that's all this ever was, a remembering of your voice, of your purpose, of your sacred signature, of your frequency that was never supposed to be duplicated. You are not a copy, you are a code. And now that the code is active, nothing will ever feel the same again. The illusions are breaking, the distractions are dissolving, the noise has lost its appeal, because now you know what you carry, you know what survived, you know what was placed inside you before you ever had the words to describe it. You are no longer moved by the storms outside, because you've found the stillness within, and in that stillness, you've touched something unshakable. You've become the space you used to search for. You've become the voice you used to wait for. You've become the presence you used to crave in others. And now others will find in you what they couldn't find in themselves. That's the cost of remembrance. You become the mirror. You become the vessel. You become the signpost, not because you're trying, but because you are, and you don't need to be understood to be effective. You don't need to be applauded to be anointed. You don't need to be seen to be sent, because what's flowing through you now was never meant for validation. It was meant for impact, and impact doesn't require permission. It requires purity. Not perfection, but purity of essence, purity of intention, purity of alignment, and that is what you now carry. You're no longer acting from survival. You're leading from sovereignty. You're no longer reacting to fear. You're responding to frequency. And that frequency is heaven-born. It will not be silenced. It will not be diluted. It will not be delayed. You are what the earth groaned for. You are what your bloodline waited for. You are what the shadows hoped you'd never remember. But you did. And now, you walk with clarity that doesn't require explanation. You speak with weight that doesn't beg for attention. You move with precision that isn't rushed by time, because you're not on the world's clock. You're on sacred time. And sacred time doesn't hurry, but it never hesitates. So don't hesitate now. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't delay because others don't see it. Don't explain what was never meant to be understood, only felt. You are not here to make sense. You are here to make shifts. You are not here to adjust. You are here to awaken. You are not here to be acceptable. You are here to be anointed, and you have been sealed, commissioned, empowered. This is the moment. The old you would have prayed for more signs, waited for more confirmation, hesitated for more clarity, but you already know. That's why you're still here. Not because life was easy, but because grace was relentless. It carried you when your feet gave out. It covered you when the world forgot you. It comforted you when your heart collapsed. And now that grace is crowning you, you are stepping into your own name. Not the one the world gave you, not the one pain tried to assign to you, but the one heaven whispered before you ever had breath. That name is not just a sound, it's a sound wave. It carries weight, it carries prophecy, it carries memory, and now it carries you. Walk with it, honor it, let it lead. Because what you are stepping into now cannot be undone. You've crossed the threshold. You've outgrown the old. You've said yes with your whole life, and heaven has responded, not with fanfare, but with force. Because when the chosen rise, realities bend. When the chosen speak, chains break. When the chosen remember, everything responds. And beloved, you remembered. So breathe, not as a beggar of blessings, but as an embodiment of them. Not as one trying to chase purpose, but as one who is purpose. Not as one waiting for a new chapter, but as the one who is the turning point. This is the unveiling. This is the emergence. This is the moment the world meets what heaven has long known. You and you are ready.